My morning in Yasinia began around 7 o'clock. I was staying in a very nice guest house near the bus station, and the guest house owner helped me get to the starting point of the trail with his private car. For a small fuel fee, I was taken to a small settlement named Kozmeshchik, deep in the Carpathian forests. There is a trail that is the shortest route to Mount Petros. In the middle is the shortest trail to Mount Hoverla, and there is a trail that is longer and mostly leads through the forest. I chose the forest option. I really like these small Carpathian rivers. The water in them is really clear. This time I was better prepared and loaded offline maps into my phone, so I knew where to go at the crossroads. However, I must admit that there are not many official signs on this section, and a person without a map or navigation could quickly get lost. Soon, at the flooded road, I began to regret not taking my boots with me, because it is impossible to cross such places with light hiking shoes, and you have to look for detours. Fortunately, I managed to cross the stream quickly. Up there is already little Hoverla. From the road signs, you could conclude that this is the green route. After a while it changed to the yellow route. Probably these are some kind of difficulty levels of the trail. After a hard hike along the Chornohora ridge, I had taken a day off. And due to limited time, it seemed that I would not have time to walk both routes to Hoverla and Petros mountains. However, the owner of the guest house told me an option in which I could achieve both goals with one hike. He told me that if I start the hike from Kozmeshchik, it is possible to do both mountains in one day. Of course, the hike will still be more than 30 kilometers, but it will at least be theoretically doable. I decided to try this option, because I had no other options anyway. Today I was wearing light hiking shoes, and I must admit that walking in them was much easier than with my light boots. When I reached a place where there were many road signs, it was noticeable that the forest had been thoroughly walked. It looked like if a giant army had moved along it in a united front. And speaking of Hoverla, this is the problem here. People do not follow one path, but paths that run parallel to each other. As a result, nature suffers. When I left the forest zone, a zone of thick bushes began, and those were certainly full of ticks. In the distance, you could see a large number of climbers climbing the mountain. At least 50 people. In 2009, 2 people died here. This reminded me once again the mountains can be unpredictable. This knowledge would come in handy later in the day when climbing Mount Petros. I had soon reached the little Hoverla, There were still almost 300 meters left to the top of Hoverla. The climb was not difficult, as it was not hot and there was a cooling wind. And the summit was soon reached. It was my 7th climb in Hoverla. Total time 3 hours 32 minutes, which was faster than originally planned. After a good climb, you always need to reward yourself. I brought a cool drink from the local merchants for 150 hryvnias. After a good physical exertion, any drink tastes much better. Mount Petros is visible in the distance, and I'm going there. There was still a chance of storm, and I didn't want to waste time. I learned that there was a water near the mountain hut. However, when I got there, I didn't find any source. A little further down the slope, I found a stream, and all I had to do was find where it came from. There was a house with a red roof on the side of the path, probably a guest house. It turned out that it was even a whole complex. When I left the territory, a guard in camouflage uniform very insistently tried to find out in Ukrainian whether I had brought an entrance ticket. It is clear that an entrance fee is required when entering a closed territory or, for example, museum. But what if they ask for a fee when you leave? Come on. So, what did I do in this situation? I pretended to be a stupid foreigner who doesn't understand a word, and smiling broadly and repeating the word sorry, I quickly moved on. Unfortunately, these negative things in Ukraine don't change that quickly. It's nice that at least the younger generation doesn't accept these negative remnants of the past, and I want to hope that they will manage to make their country a much better place to live. This part of the trail is easy to walk on mostly flat terrain. In the distance, you could already see Mount Petros. Although the signpost said that it was 1 hour 45 minutes to the top of Mount Petros, it didn't seem realistic. Because from afar it was clear that the mountain was steep and technically more difficult than Hoverla. Maybe that was the distance to the foot of the mountain. In the distance you can see Hoverla and the road where I came from. The remaining climb to Mount Petros will be about 500 meters. Having missed the turn to the mountain, I went in the wrong direction for 20 minutes. So I completely unnecessarily lost my already precious time. Moreover, not wanting to go all the way back, I chose to break straight through thickets full of ticks and snakes in order to get to the right trail faster. What I did manage to do. And the climb could begin. The trail went up in a zigzag pattern because, unlike Hoverla, it would be too difficult to climb straight up. These sweets really help. Not very healthy, because sugar remains sugar. But on a climb like this, when you are a little short of strength by the top, it's just in time. So will I finally be at the top? No, there are still a million meters to climb. The name of the mountain is translated into English as Peter. Peter is also the name of my grandfather, who passed away a long time ago, and I dedicated this climb to his memory. The signpost showed Yasinia 6 hours. A strong wind was blowing at the top of the mountain, and my Garmin watch started beeping. Storm alert! A storm was approaching. I had received such signals before, and they always turn out to be true. That is why I advised the English-speaking folks I met at the top of the mountain to immediately go to some safer place. And I also started the descent myself, sometimes even running. I had to get to the forest zone, because thunderstorms and lightning in the open areas of the mountain top are very dangerous. In the distance, storm clouds were already visible, and they were approaching rapidly. The wind began to blow stronger and stronger, and I no longer had the time to see the mountain lakes. However, running through the forest zone was not safe, and the reason for this was the many snakes. And I was wearing light hiking shoes and shorts, so I had to slow down. Secondly, due to the strong wind, the hissing of the snakes could not be heard, and this increased the risk of approaching them dangerously close to a bite distance. My only advantage was the trekking poles, with which when you hit the ground, the snakes feel the vibration and in most cases choose to clear the way. The storm was still approaching, but I had to stop and rest for 5 minutes. In addition, the camera stabilizer was discharged. The sun started to shine for a moment, and it seemed that I had managed to escape the storm. I don't even imagine what happened to those people on Petros. Perhaps they were all carried away by the wind. Only after a long time did the trail finally start to head down. Because all the time it had been moving along the mountain ridge at an altitude about 1400 to 1500 meters. Soon I reached another mountain meadow. There were also a few houses here with well-kept gardens and livestock. In Ukraine, such places are called polonina. Looking at the time, I realized that I still had enough time to walk to the accommodation. So I did not head towards the highway, but along the longer route through the ridge and mountain villages. After all, I had to leave tomorrow, and this way I could enjoy the magic of the Carpathian mountains a little longer. When I went out into the open, I noticed that the storm that had been on my heels a moment ago had not disappeared anywhere, but it was still approaching. And I had to run from it again. Judging by the map, there was at least an hour to go. In the distance, I could already see the Yasinia town. Ahead was the last hill to overcome. According to the map, there should have been a trail here, but in fact there was a long grass in which various snakes and other beasts were writhing and crawling, but I had no choice but to move along it, because the village was practically within arm's reach. As soon as I entered the guest house, the storm reached the village, and the real apocalypse began. The rain did not stop for several hours, but overall the hike was magical. Just a final word. Walking down the trail to Yasinia, I found a horseshoe. In my culture, finding a horseshoe means to find luck and happiness. And I think I found a little bit of happiness in the Carpathian mountains these days. Happiness in walking these green magical mountains, hearing the noise of the mountain streams, and meeting smiling faces. Happiness also means overcoming difficulties on the way to the top of the mountain, and that is what I wish from the bottom of my heart to the defenders of Ukraine.